Can't have that. So we'll fix it, but it's not going to be something that's going to be easy. It's going to be something that you've got to dig in and you've got to be focused at the task at hand. Yes?
One of the things you mentioned was term limits for Congress. And I totally agree, except the lobby seems to control an awful lot of what happens. So that's all part of the swamp, but I need rid of the lobby today.
So it's a great question. So term limits, I think most people agree with it. But one of the arguments against it was, well, if you do term limits, then the lobbyists are just going to run the show. First of all, I can tell you, the lobbyists already run the show in D.C., so don't tell me it's going to be much different. Second, I can just tell you in Florida, we have term limits for our legislature, and it works. And it's better than having people that are there for 40 years and they accumulate their fiefdoms, and it's more about staying in office than actually delivering results. So for example, in Florida, you get elected, you can serve 4 2-year terms in the House and 2 4-year terms in the Florida Senate. So you go in, they already identify who's going to be a leadership for that class, so everyone knows who the speaker will be, and you're a speaker for 2 years, or you're the president of the Florida Senate for 2 years. So your incentive, knowing you're going to be leaving office, is to leave a legacy, to get things done, not to just keep yourself in office for another 20 years. So I think the incentives are so much better. I do not think that would cause the lobbyists to have much more power than they already do. But the easiest thing to do to reduce the impact of lobbying is to reduce the size of government. When government gets involved in everything, people are going to hire lobbyists to represent their interests. And if we had a limited government, there'd be much less reason to lobby. People lobby because it's like pigs at the trough. You've got all this money sloshing around. You have Congress picking winners and losers, the bureaucracy picking winners and losers. So of course people are going to hire to be able to defend themselves. Yes, sir.
2 things. First off, I want to compliment you on using we a lot more than me or I. Thank you. It shows your focus.
Yes.
No, that's not a good idea. But I think they live in this bubble that they end up doing a lot of things, and some of it's knowing and abusive, of course, but it just creates a different window of what they think. So, you may need Congress to do some of it, but I definitely think you can take at least parts of agencies and do it. So what I've said is, I'll do an executive order to all the cabinet secretaries to say they have to reduce their D.C. area footprint by at least 50%. And so that can involve laying off people, it can involve transferring people, it can involve a whole host of things. They can figure out how to do it, but we've got to do it. There's way too much accumulation in D.C. Our founders would not have wanted this. This is not the way their vision for this. So yes, I think those would all be very positive. Yes, sir.
This could be our last question. So you talked about getting rid of the swamp. Is that reforming what's there, or in some cases is it you just got to burn it down and start over?
Well, look, I think that there's you have some of the things that the federal government is doing. Anyone that tells you a president can just unilaterally overturn a statute is not being honest with you. So you need to work with Congress, and we will do both. You also got to figure out how do you actually get some of this stuff done instead of just posture with get a single Democrat for any of that. So how do you do it? You got to put it in the budget reconciliation where you only need 50 votes in the Senate. We're going to reverse Bidenomics, reverse the Green New Deal, do all that's going to save trillions of dollars to be able to do that. And that gives us an opportunity to then move the direction that we want to do. But it's a variety of ways where you got to do, and what I'll do is, and I think what I've done a good job of doing in Florida, is I think, okay, what do we want to accomplish, and then how do you get there? And it's not as easy as just like, as a governor or as a president, you're not like a sole proprietor of a business where you can just do whatever you want. You're the head of one branch of government in a constitutional system where there's separation of powers and checks and balances. So anytime you do something, if you do something executive, there can be people that are going to try to stop that in the legislature and the courts, or maybe you do just have a unilateral right to do something. Then you work with the legislative branch on some things, and you still look at the courts and all these other things. One of the things that I think is important to note going forward about the overall, because we focus a lot on the bureaucracy of the administration, and rightfully so. It's a huge, huge problem. It's distorted our constitutional system to no end. The other thing that can potentially be very disruptive and distort is what will happen with the future of the U.S. Supreme Court. So right now, they say we have a 6-3 conservative court. That's not really true. If you look at it, there are 3 liberal justices that are in lockstep. No matter what happens, you can predict where they will be in case, no question. The 6 that are Republican appointees are not in lockstep. You will have a Kavanaugh go left. Gorsuch, who was Trump's first appointee, he wrote an opinion reinterpreting the Civil Rights Act from 1964 to include transgenderism. They didn't even know what it was then. The other 4 are a variety of getting it right, and most of them get it right more than not, but there definitely been cases where they haven't done that. Why does that matter? Because the court is better today than it was 10 years ago, thanks to being able to replace Justice Ginsburg. But I think you serve 2 terms as president. Who are the justices that are most likely to be replaced at that point? Probably Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito. Here's the problem. If you replace them with judges like Trump did, which were not bad, I mean, they're good judges, but if you place them with one of those 3, like a Kavanaugh, that moves the court to the left, doesn't keep it where it is. So you got to, as a president, you got to know that we're going to need justices in the mold of an Alito, in the mold of a Clarence Thomas to replace them, and then any other vacancies that may occur. Because if you don't get that right, then you're moving the court in a more leftward direction. And if you look at what the left is doing to the legal profession now, you look at these law schools, the people that they're producing, I mean, these are very radical. These people have a radical agenda. That's who the Democrats are going to populate throughout the court system and eventually put some of these people on the Supreme Court. And if the left is able to take control of the Supreme Court, they are going to use that to legislate a leftist agenda on the American people through the guise of constitutional interpretation and law. And it's basically amending the law and amending the Constitution. That's a huge, huge risk for our freedoms. And so if we don't get this election right, and I think I'm the guy that can do it, both win the election, but also do all this stuff, the courts and the administrative state. But if we don't do that, you're going to have freedom under attack by a runaway bureaucracy, which is only going to get worse, and probably a Supreme Court that is going to end up having a functional liberal majority, within the next 4 to 8 years. And so Katie barred the door on your liberty if that was happening. So good news about being an American, you have an ability to make your voice heard. So it starts on January 15th in the Iowa caucus. I'm asking for your support. I think Iowans can really change the course of this country for the better. I think you have it within your capacity to not let the media tell you who you should vote for or who they say is going to win, but who you think would do the best job as the standard bearer for the Republican Party, and more importantly, would do the best job as President of the United States. So I'm asking for your support. For those of you who do support us, thank you. God bless. And let's go get this done. Thank you so much.